Well, greetings. My name is Jim Wickens with NFLDraftFanatics.com, and I am going to explain some of the aspects of the interactive mock draft capabilities of the simulator on NFLDraftFanatics.com. There are 32 NFL teams. The simulator here uses a unique player board for each team. So this video and podcast is specific to the Philadelphia Eagles. So everything I do during this video affects only the Philadelphia Eagles. The other 31 teams have a player board. None of my actions here will affect those player boards. There's a couple of positional groups I need to pay attention to. Linebacker, running back, offensive line, and defensive back. Those position groups need a little bit of attention. A player board gets loaded. It's been on the site at this point, I think, for about 6 weeks, and player rankings need to change. So as I go through and verify every team's draft card is functioning right, I'm recording a video to explain this is how the simulator was designed. Eagles fans can come in and use the same techniques and say, Jim, you don't know what you're talking about. This is Howie Roseman, and this is the way the Eagles board is going to work. I actually had to do a mock draft for the Eagles for an event last year, and I had a bunch of Eagles fans feeding me information. They're like, Howie Roseman does it this way. So, for example, don't take a running back in round 1 or whatever, those types of things. So, anyways, I enjoyed that conversation with those Eagles fans. I know the Eagles right now, you're not really focused on the draft in the middle of December. You've got some playoff games that you're hoping to play and win. So, anyways, we are recording this December 14th, and just let's dive into it. So, the first position group I'm going to do is linebacker. And we have this thing called the first round challenge, which is 5 unique first round picks. Okay. So I'm going to work on linebackers. So I'm going to take 5 linebackers in the first round, right? So it's basically going to do a 1-round mock. Then right after that, another 1-round mock and another, 5 straight times. I'm going to take a linebacker all 5 times. Not because I think the Eagles need to take a linebacker, but because I need to work on the player boards. Okay. And this is a great way to show how the simulator works. So okay, so one of the linebackers I want to pay attention to is Trotter, and it looks like somebody's already been in and moved Mondon up because his default rank is like 100. So I can see somebody's already done a mock draft for the Eagles and taken Bethune, or it's going to be taking Mondon. But anyways, so I will take Mondon as one of the linebackers. Trotter was already really high, so I'm not going to take him. Bethune is another one. I want you to observe. He's number 95 right now. Okay, Maris. So Maris' default ranking, actually, he was like in the 500s or 600s on the board. So again, I can tell somebody's been in here doing a mock draft for the Eagles, and they like Marist as well. So he's 96. I'm taking him in a first-round challenge. He is shooting up the board. He will be a much higher than 96. Okay, couple of other linebackers. Dumas Johnson, probably going in round 2 or 3. He's got a ranking of 135. So I'm taking him. And at this point, I believe at this point, I've taken 4. So this is the last iteration. The rest of it, because Trotter was the 5th, I think I like, let me rephrase that. I don't think there's any other linebacker I need to move up to day 2, right? So my focus was to make sure day 2 linebackers have been appropriately placed. And it looks like everything's good. So Eagles probably need a corner. So I'm going to take Terrion Arnold with the last one just to finish the challenge and move on with the rest of the video. So I want you to observe I took Mondin, Bethune, Marist, and Jamin. Okay. And then I also took Arnold. Okay, the next position I want to work on is defensive back. I want to make sure from a defensive back standpoint, there are 8 players, but I only have 5 picks in a first round challenge. So the 8 players are there's 5 defensive backs that I believe will go in round 1. And then there's 2 more that if they fall to the Eagles in round 2, I would be really surprised if the Eagles didn't take them. So I want to make sure that they're at the top of the Eagles board in round 2. Because the likelihood, for example, that Kool-Aid McKinstry falls to pick 32 is really low. And at the time we established the draft order about 3 weeks ago, the Eagles had the best record in the league. So that's why they're at 32. I update the draft order here about once a month until the season ends. Okay, so we're doing a first round challenge, and I'm going to focus on defensive backs. So let's make a couple of observations. Okay, so as it goes through, I want you to observe Trotter, Mondin, so a couple of the linebackers I took were all the way up at the top of the draft card with Marist and Tatum Bethune. They're on the 3rd page, and that was the result of my taking linebackers in the first round challenge. Okay, right now I'm working on defensive backs. So Wiggins is one of the defensive backs that has a first round grade. So if he falls to the Eagles, I think that would be an excellent pick. Okay. Okay, so at this point, no first round corner is available. And none of the first round safeties are available either. So Lassiter likely has a second round grade. So I'm going to take Lassiter in the first round challenge. Observe he is 52 right now. Okay, so again, a little bit of like mock drafting, right? None of the second round corners I want to pick are there. Like, I don't even see Burke. So I'm curious, did he fall like to the bottom of the draft card? Yep, he's already taken. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that Newbin, who's 56 on the draft card, might be a target for the Eagles in round 2. And there's probably going to be a couple of Eagles fans that say, there's no way Howie Roseman is going to use a premium pick on a safety, a premium pick, day 1, day 2 pick on a safety. I might agree with you, but I'm working on the draft card. I'm focused on DB, so I'm doing what I do. And if you don't like what I do, you come in as an Eagles fan and you redo my work. And we'll talk more about that as this progresses. Okay, so Burke is there. He would be an excellent pick, in my opinion, in round 2. I'm taking him in a first round challenge to keep him high on the draft card. Okay, and the last player I'm going to pick here is Bullock. So he was 31 on the draft card at the time I took him. Okay, so you do a first round challenge. You could do it for a couple of different reasons. If you have a podcast, this is a great discussion. Who are your 5 best first round picks for the Eagles? And just have Eagles fans all over tell you who their 5 favorite first round picks are. And the one that is the most commonly picked is likely going to be the player at the top of the card. Okay, so this is a great way to kind of set up a fan mock draft. And that's part of the reason that the site was designed the way that it was, is we want the fans to decide who the team drafts. We do not want a expert to build a big board and then have 32 teams use the same board, because that's just not the way that it works. Okay, the next position I want to work on is a running back. Now, hopefully you saw, like when I picked the linebackers, they moved to the top of the draft card. The defensive backs I just picked also moved to the top. Okay. I don't want running backs to move to the top of the draft card. Okay. I also know that the Eagles, from what the fans tell me, will never use a premium pick on a running back, right? That's a day 3 thing. So what we're going to do next is use a second round challenge. And there's some running backs that need to move up the board. Like you'll see when I get to them that they're too low. Okay. Now a second round challenge is 10 unique second round picks. I believe the Eagles only have a single second round pick, but I'm about to find out when I go in. So if they have 2 second round picks, I have to have 20 players to take. But I believe they only have 10 unique second round, which would mean 10 unique players. 4 of them are going to be running backs, and then the other 6, I'm going to start working on the offensive line. Okay, so with the round 1 pick in a second round challenge, you can pick any players. You can pick the same player 10 times if you want. I'm going to pick probably 8 different players and a couple. So obviously 2 of them I'll end up picking twice if I really like them for the Eagles. Okay, so we're doing a second round challenge for the Eagles. And my second round picks are going to focus on running backs first, offensive line second, because there's parts of the draft board I need to work on. Okay, so what do I think the Eagles would do in round 1? I do like Terrion Arnold as a corner to the Eagles. Okay, so the running backs that I need to work on. If you look here, Irving is at 97. Devin Neal is at 146. So Irving, that's probably about the right spot for him, so I'm going to skip that. But Neal is probably one of the 5 best running backs in the class. He's at 146. So I'm going to pick him there because I want him higher than 146. So part of the second round challenge is working on the draft card. And it looks like the Eagles have a second. Okay, so they have 2 second round picks. Okay, so another position I need to work on is offensive line. So Tyler Guyton probably going in round 2 or 3. So I'm picking him to move him up the draft card. So I just learned that the Eagles have 2 second round picks. This is going to make a portion of this easier. Okay, so now we're back to round 1. So what do I think the Eagles will do in round 1? Let's see what wide receivers are there. So I see several wide receivers I like. So I'm going to take Johnny Wilson in round 1 for the Eagles. He was 45 when I picked him. And then I have more running backs to work on. Lloyd, look at his value right here. He's 226. Okay, and then offensive line. Okay, here's a player from Yale that was just added. So you're going to hear about this guy at the combine, Kieran Amagaji. Okay, people are going to love him at the combine. He is probably, and he was the last player on the draft card. He literally got added to the simulator yesterday. As you know, you do research and you find new players that are coming in. So he's probably going round 3, 4. My goal here is to move him up so that when rounds 3 or 4 get there, he's on, let's say, first, second, third page. He's not the last player in the draft card. Okay, so we're back to the round 1 pick. Notice that I picked Wilson last time and he's at the top of the draft card this time. Okay, I like Worthy in round 1, so I'm going to pick him there. Okay, and we're still working on running backs and offensive linemen. Another running back to pay attention to is Isaiah Davis. Okay, he's 341 on the draft card right now. And then let's look offensive line. Patrick Paul. So he's already the top player on the board, but second round challenge. part of the goal is if you can always pick the top player on the board when you're doing either a second round challenge or a third round challenge, that's telling you that your draft card is set up really well. So the fact that Patrick Paul was the top player on the card tells me an Eagles fan has drafted him before because he's usually a little bit lower. Okay, so another player for the Eagles, I like Rome Odunze. If he falls all the way to the back of round one, I think Eagles fans will like that. We still have to work on running backs. Marks is 208. He's probably going in round 4 or maybe 5. Okay, so I've picked Marks and then need to work on my offensive line. So Fuaga, he's already pretty high on the card. Jordan Morgan. So because these two players are already high. Ironically, Morgan is actually pretty high too. But by me picking him in the second round, he's going to move higher than 53. Okay, so at this point, I have done the 4 running backs I need. The rest of this for me is now about offensive line, both in round 1 and round 2. So Mims has a round 1 grade. He's in the top 4 of the draft card at this point. So I'm good there. And then remember when I took defensive backs in the first round challenge, it's so, for example, would you take King or Lassiter with the Eagles' first, second round pick? So a goal when you're building a draft card and you're doing one of these round challenges is, can you pick the player at the top of the draft card? Is that the player that you like the most? So if the Eagles went offensive tackle in round 1, do you think they would go corner round 2? I'm going to pick Lassiter. And part of that is I want Lassiter's value to move up. And then that means that the 4 players above him will have their value go down a little bit, which included King, because I do want King's value to go down a little bit from 17. Okay. And then again, I can tell there's an Eagles fan that's done a few mock drafts here. Because seeing the defensive tackles at the top of the card, that's not where the defensive tackles originally started on the draft card. So taking one of the defensive tackles there. Okay, if Wiggins is there, that's a good pick. So let me also point out a couple of other things. So I see Penix high on the Eagles draft card. Okay, I don't think the Eagles have taken a quarterback in round 1. If you disagree with me, feel free to tweet me at NFL Draft Fanatic. I welcome all comments, positive and negative. So I like Chop Robinson, and because he's underneath the quarterback, he's 29th. The quarterback is 16th. I'm taking the player under the quarterback. Okay. Now, round 2 to the Eagles. Would they take a second edge, or would they take the defensive line? But look at who's at the top of the draft card. Again, that's the round challenge working very effectively. I like Xavier Leggett above those two, especially if the Eagles went edge. And because we've already taken a lot of the offensive linemen, we can't take them here. Okay. Because once you take somebody in a round challenge, so in a second round challenge, once you take the player, you won't be able to find them for the rest of that event. Okay. None of the guards are worth discussing there. The Eagles do need a center. Jackson Powers Johnson. He was like 170 something when I picked him. Okay. So notice now, Chop Robinson is higher than the quarterback. Should Keon Coleman be higher than the quarterback? I say yes, so that's why I'm picking him. Okay. And then I like JT round 2. Okay. So again, there's some running backs that are high on the draft card. If you'd rather take that edge or this linebacker over the running back, I'm purposely looking down the card saying that linebacker should be higher than that running back. And that was the reason that I made that pick. So again, I like the top of that draft card. I can tell there's an Eagles fan that's been using the simulator. I absolutely love it. So the way that that board is stacking up, I can tell that there's been some Eagles mock drafts done. That looks really good to me there. Troy Franklin, round 1, should be under consideration. If Cooper DeJean falls to the Eagles in round 2, do you think they take him? Okay, that's a first round safety, has some flexibility to play in the box, could possibly play some slot corner. I like that pick. Now, if Howie Roseman doesn't make that pick, then you come in and you do your own second round challenge and tell me how wrong I am. Okay. And then again, I see Sawyer. I think the Eagles would be more likely to take Sawyer than the running back. So that's how I work on the draft card when I do a round challenge. If I see a position that's out of place, pick somebody under the position, and that running back is going to keep falling down the draft card. So again, second round, Worthy has dropped, and so is Wilson. So to me, that's a good pick, taking one of those wide receivers that dropped in round 2. Running back sitting at the top of the draft card right now. Who would they take a linebacker over Brooks? I believe this player for the Eagles would be rated higher. And if you're looking for a great example of like a draft card that was set up right before I recorded this, I was looking at the Bears draft card. A Bears fan has manipulated their board so that the Bears take a running back in round 3. So the Bears have 2 picks in round 1, none in round 2, and then a third round pick. When I was looking, the 5 best running backs in the draft are at the top of the Bears draft card in round 3. So they've manipulated their board, and that's how the simulator is going to be picking for the Bears. And I thought that was absolutely clever. Yeah. So this is the last iteration. Okay. So I've done 10 unique second rounds, which involve 20 players because the Eagles have 2 second round picks. So now that I don't need to move players up, let's just do a straight up second round challenge for the Eagles and talk about, can we pick the top player on the draft card? Okay. So what I mean by that is when we get to the second round, it won't let us repeat picks. So if this is the draft board for the Eagles, would we take DeJean? I don't think so. I think they would take Arnold or maybe JT, right? So they're not, in this situation, they're not taking the top player on the draft card. So I'm going to take Arnold. That should move Arnold up and DeJean down. How much DeJean moved down and how much Arnold moved up, difficult to exactly say. I could go, with a calculator, figure out some of the math. But that should happen. Now, second round, would they take Sweat? Probably. If he's there, I think he would be the pick. Okay, and then I would say that they would go O-line over the running back and that specific corner. Okay, so now we're back. We're doing round one again. So if Mims falls to the Eagles, would you take him over Chop Robinson? Again, there could be some debate there. If you want to see who the other offensive tackles are, Mims should be the highest rated of those tackles, according to me. So I am going to take Mims. That looked right. He was in the right spot. Okay. Would they take BB over Leggett or Burke? I think they would go corner here. So I'm going to say that no, they would prefer the corner over the two that were above him. And then if Adonai Mitchell is there at the end of round 2, do you think the Eagles take him? Right? He was the one sitting at the top of the card. So if you're picking the player at the top of the draft card, that's telling you that there's been enough Eagles fans that have come in, done mock drafts, and based upon the randomness, the players are actually seated on the draft card effectively. Okay? So do you think the Eagles would take Rome Odunze over Chop Robinson? And do you think for what the Eagles like in a wide receiver that they, for example, wouldn't take Worthy over Odunze? Okay. I'm not privy to Eagles, let's say, prototypical wide receivers. I'm going to take the higher rated player there. But again, if you disagree with me, tweet me at NFL Draft Fanatic. There's no I in my Twitter handle. If Graham Barton falls in this case, because they've already taken a wide receiver, I think they would be taking Graham Barton there. And then Bethune over the rest of those. Okay. Do you think they take J.C. Latham over those two wide receivers? I think they would. So by picking the top player on the card, it doesn't reduce anybody's value. The player I picked will increase in value, but whether he increases in value, let's say to go from 11th on the draft card to 10th, is difficult to say, difficult to predict. Okay, so if this is the round 2 board for the Eagles, would they take Lassiter over those wide receivers? I'd have a hard time saying that they would. In this case, I do like Worthy. And then I already took the offensive tackle. Zinter's going to be redshirted a year, so I probably wouldn't take him in round 2. Okay. Jackson Powers Johnson. The last time I picked him, he was 170. So he went from 170 to 100. And I just picked him in the second round again. So he's going to be higher than 100 on the Eagles board. Okay. Of these players, I think the Eagles would take Wiggins. Second round, if Chop Robinson falls, I definitely think that that's a good pick. And I haven't taken an offensive lineman here. So of those 3, I believe Fuaga would be the higher rated of those 3 offensive tackles. Okay, so of these players, I really think they would only be looking at the top 4. I'm going to take, I think they would take Arnold over Latu, but wow. I'm actually going to take Latu there, but that was, I had to think about that one. Lassiter in round 2. He was at the top of the card. That's a good pick. And then haven't taken the offensive tackle yet. Let me check one other thing. I don't think I've taken the Yale offensive tackle this time yet. So most of the time, we were able to take somebody that was really close to the top of the draft card. I don't need to worry about moving running backs up or anything like that. As we're getting now to the point where I've picked like 18 players in the second round, the second round board is getting really thin. And with all of me skipping the running back, I think at one point the running back, Jonathan Brooks, I think was a running back. He was number 26 and he's dropped to 28 just by me skipping him every single time. Okay. So people will have to do these second round challenges frequently to see the player drop. Okay. So you see me do 2 second round challenges and you can use them slightly different ways. So the first time I was purposely doing it to move very specific position groups up of players I knew that were underrated. The second time, I'm more checking the top part of the Eagles draft card. And there's a lot of randomness built into the simulator. So what I mean by that is that the goal would be if you come and you do a mock draft every day, that you see something different. I don't know what will be different, but you need to see something different. A different set of players for the Eagles doesn't mean that all of the top 8 players need to be different, but you need to see something different. There is a lot of randomness that is built into the algorithm here. It's not really built on team needs. It's more built on, do you like player A over player B, right? Because it's more of a big board mentality. We have a big board and we like this corner, this edge, this defensive tackle, this offensive tackle. It's not about what the team need is. It's about, these are the 4 guys we like. Which of those 4 do we prefer over the other? Kind of thing. So anyways, my name is Jim Wickens with NFLDraftFanatics.com. I hope you learned something. We're just over 30 minutes. My goal was 30, so please don't hurt me. I look forward to a lot of conversations on the NFL draft, as well as draft simulators as the season ends in February and draft season begins. So I appreciate you all. Tweet at me, message me on Twitter, and I look forward to the ongoing dialogue. Thank you so much and have a great day.